Mr. Pharmacist, can you help me out today in your usual way? Welcome to your Wednesday bulletin, tonic and wine for the Celtic State of Mind. I'm joined, as usual, by John Hughes Jr., whose liver is still in the Balearic Islands. Due to Brexit conditions about important toxic waste back into Ireland. John, how are you today after your birthday weekend?
Well, a lot better today. It was a very solid 2-day hangover, and a lot better today. Not really young enough to tolerate multiple days on the trot, So, no, my birthday was a nothing birthday, but it was, a friend of ours was 60, so it was great. Malaga's a great spot, actually. I've been in that airport a million times and always going on to Fuengirola or off to play golf or something. Never went to Malaga City Old Town. Great spot.
I got mixed up with my M's. I thought it was Mallorca you were at, so the Balearic Islands introduction is now null and void.
There's a geography lesson.
There's a geography lesson. I should have stuck in at school. What we're going to do today, we're going to answer questions we got on Twitter yesterday. And plus we're going to answer questions that come in real time as well for the beautiful people that actually watch us on a Wednesday afternoon. John, the first question that I'm going to ask you is, are you a World Cup Willie Malloy or a consensus objector since the World Cup begins on Sunday?
Again, I've said it on here before, and I don't mean to offend anyone that's a supporter of international teams or anything like that. I couldn't care less. Now, I watch if Australia are doing okay, I'll watch a bit of them, just for the obvious reasons. Don't mind the Welsh in particular, but other than that, it's the only reason I'd be watching it is to see how our guys are doing. But I have no real interest. It just, the thing about this World Cup is, isn't it? And I know we didn't discuss this, but it just feels all wrong. It's in the wrong time of year. It's very definitely in the wrong place. Was achieved in the wrong way, and there's nothing about it that feels right. As apparently they've got fake supporters out there as well, try to drum up a bit of atmosphere, which is ridiculous videos I've ever seen. But no, it's not for me, and I'm not getting on my high horse about it. If your team's there, you want to support your team. That's grand. But for me, I just think it's really unpalatable. Leaves a bad taste in the mouth, and I couldn't really get my head around it. And again, it's such a weird time of year. You can't get into it. There's no build up to it. I mean, they're playing next week,
Sunday. Sunday.
Yeah. So it's usually there's the summer break. And there's a big build up to it, and it's just interrupting the season. Now there's a question as whether this has actually come at quite a good time for us, but that's a different matter. But what about you, Kev? How are you feeling about it?
Well, I've got my World Cup wall chart to put up. I'm getting into it, and I can't wait to watch Ecuador Senegal. Like in a couple of weeks' time, Tuesday, November the 29th at 3:00, Ecuador against Senegal. No, there's quite a few things I'm interested in having a look at. It's 4 games a day, and it's just geezer. I will get into it, but I completely get what everybody says. Even this World Cup wall chat has got it's about this when Saturday comes. World Cup wall chat for those who are listening audio. Later on, it's got all money and all of that, and it's just generally having a dig at how it's ended up in Qatar. I think FIFA have got the last 2 wrong in Russia and also Qatar, but there is some things I'm interested in, like obviously Ange Postecoglou gives you that we've got 4 players there. I'm interested in watching Iran because Ange Postecoglou has been in Iran a couple of times for players and stuff like that. So there is some interest in football, but it will be this type of thing. I'll maybe watch 10 minutes of a game, and if it's utter dross, I will then go, I'm done with that. I'm done with that. I'll just watch the highlights later on or something like that.
One of my Twitter commenters suggested this morning, a real good topic for conversation would be FIFA corruption. And I was like, well, first of all, mate, we need to narrow that down. Are you talking about this year, this month? You know what I mean?
I mean,
how much? It's a fair enough idea, but I mean that's for TV researchers and stuff. I mean that is so bad and so in depth. Mind you could do a bit of research yourself because it's also very, very blatant. You know, a lot of it is not hidden. But anyway, I mean those boys walked away from that court case, so didn't they? You know, for
the 22 of the FIFA committee that voted for the World Cup to go to Qatar, 11 of them have been done. 11 of them have been arrested for accepting bribes.
Yeah.
So I think that actually shows you how corrupt this World Cup actually is. But it is a beautiful game. I can hark back to Italia 90 and all of that, and I will be watching some. And I understand where Francisco Francisco comes in. I shall be bought. Would have done so if it was a summer event. My beliefs become before football. Understand that completely, but I will be watching as many games as I possibly can just to see if there's any decent stories or something.
Did you see?
Come out of it.
Yeah. Did you see Gary Neville getting absolutely skewered on Have I Got News for You?
No.
They embarrassed the life out of him. It's like they just held his feet to the fire and basically saying, "Why are you going?" And he says, "Well, I believe you've got two choices." And his lip says, "Yeah, go or don't go." And he says, "No, you can go and shine a light on it, or you can stay at home not doing it." And his lip says, "Well, you can stay at home and shine a light on it. What are you going to do? What are you going to do during commentary?" You know, because most of these guys are in the media and the spotlight. They get away with a glib answer like that. You know, we're taking the money, these are the reasons, but there's never usually a follow-up question. And there was a follow-up question, and he looked a fool, and he'd have been well advised not to take that gig, and he'd be well advised not to take the gig in Qatar as well. But I mean, there's people like Robbie Williams and stuff going there, you know, apparently, and singing and things like that, which is bizarre for, you know, the LGBTQ rights alone issue, which should be enough to stop most people. But you know, look, teach their own.
It should be, but sometimes money talks and sometimes potential knighthoods talk, as Robbie Williams and David Beckham might find out with us sending so-called big stars to Qatar to promote it, and especially when Qatar exports the third highest gas in the world at this particular time in Europe. So there's probably a method to these guys' madness, and it's probably to do with knighthoods and stuff like that. But that's not for us. But Daniel Pincus comes in. Well, no, Paul Andrew Martin, cheers, mate. More interested in the Sydney Cup than the World Cup. And Daniel Pincus comes in. Hi for Sydney. Awesome day out today at the open training session. John, it was great to actually see the troops, the Australian troops, getting to meet the team this morning at the open training session, and it shows how good this trip is for us, eh?
No, it's great. It's absolutely great, and it's very uplifting because you know the real. I mean, we can all get a bit jaded and a bit used to it, you know, but the real genuine excitement out there is fantastic, you know, and. So the person that should be really glad that they're avoiding that trip is Gio, because he could have got sacked in the back of a pumping in a friendly in Australia, and that would have been an interesting one. But I think Frank Lampard might get the sack while he's out there, so you know, it'll also be an interesting one. But you know, it's great to see everyone getting to meet them all. It's great to see. I saw a thing. I don't know if it was a joke. It was almost like they were on a bus from one side of Australia to the other, and some CSC. And if it wasn't a joke, it was one of the longest bus journeys I've ever seen in my life. Was
that the one where they say that you weren't allowed to drink until you got to the South Australia border or something like that?
Yeah. So I don't know if that was a laugh or not, but my God, that would have been some journey. You know, I think you'd have been a lot faster flying from the UK to Australia. It can take more than 24 hours. But, you know, it's great to see, isn't it? It's really great to see. It's great to see the club getting the recognition. It's great to see the players getting recognition and understanding, how big the brand is abroad, and how privileged they are to play for this club. And it's just wonderful to see. I mean, we know, obviously, because all the guys that we're connected to through Celtic Down Under and all, we know exactly how strong the feelings are out there for the club. This is not just some wee, casual thing. So we've got some real diehards out there, and that's difficult to do from the other side of the world when the games are in the middle of the night. So fair play to those boys. I hope they get to see 2 great victories and 2 great performances.
So they are. I mean, there's a couple of comments coming in. I'm going to bring in Peter. Peter's one of our resident Aussies. Remember, in Australia, we get up at 2 a.m. to watch Celtic play. Yep. And that's something that we're going to do if you want to watch Celtic against Everton. It kicks off at 3:45 on Sunday morning. And Donny Boy 67 asks, is the first game tomorrow morning in Oz? It is, Donny, 8:45 kick-off Celtic time. So for us working for him, it could be a wee chance to watch that game. I'd say
that'd be a difficult one for the players. I thought, I hadn't really thought about it since it was booked in the diary, but that's not a lot of time to acclimatise. You're completely turning the time of day on its head. So that's not a lot of time to acclimatise, especially for an athlete.
It isn't, but then
it's a very weird time of day to be playing for them, I'm sure.
So I don't know what the time that'll be in the middle of the afternoon for them. I don't know. It depends. What time was the training session today? I don't again. I don't know, but I'm sure our sports scientist lads will be all on the case there. Gary Oliver asked the question: is Calmac back training? And Fuji's Tony gives us the answer, and so did Big John there. Yes. Great to see Calmac back in training with the boys in Australia. Yes, Gary, he was there front and centre this morning in the open training session. I don't know how hard the open training session would have been, but he was there running about with the team, and that's great to see, Johnny.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic, because the midfield without McGregor in it is not the same. So, and that's actually one of the first points here that someone was asking on the old Twitter. And he was asking about Turnbull and how he fits into the midfield when everyone is fit, and Matt O'Reilly and how he's benefited from dropping back a place. And obviously then is to do with the strap. Hakšabanović might turn out to be Ange's best signing. And a couple of other comments on Hakšabanović there. Is Hakšabanović is the new Lubo, and Hakšabanović is our cleverest player. So I have to say, a massive fan of Hakšabanović pretty much since he first kicked the ball, because it looks straight away as if he's one of those boys, low centre of gravity, tremendous control, incredibly skillful. And I've said it before, I mean, the only reason I would say that he probably doesn't end up playing at the top level is because, especially if he's playing on the wing, he's not fast. He's not super fast. He doesn't have that kind of pace that you see at the top level of, Champions League or whatever. But he's a great player for us. I'm delighted to see him score. But again, I would have had... I like him so much. I was saying over the last few weeks, as you know, that I would have liked to see him playing at the top of the midfield rather than have Turnbull or Moy, because I wanted to see him more involved in the game. But again, if we have a bit of depth in the midfield, and that gives us a very, very strong front three if we're playing, with Jota and Kyogo as well. So that's a midfield and a front three to be feared at quite a lot of levels, I would say. With Calmac back. But, what about, I mean, it's fairly obvious to me, but, in terms of Turnbull, how do you think he fits in when everyone's fit?
We'll go to Turnbull, but before, I'm just going to bring up something that's ruckusing in the comments that I'll need to put a nail on. Stevie boy, every World Cup is a money laundering scam, freebies and jollies. Corruption is sadly natural human behaviour. I'm not going to disagree with that, but he did come back in later on and says we snipered that comment. Stevie, the chat doesn't like the truth. Wrote it twice about the World Cup and twice it's been snipered. As far as I'm aware, I'm the only person that's allowed to sniper things today because I'm the only man that's got control. So I don't care what you're saying there, Stevie, but I actually agree with you. I think every World Cup is awarded through nefarious ways, just the same as I think the Champions League is an utter corrupt competition as well. So we're not going to actually hide away from the truth with that. It's just how you accept that we're going to watch things like the World Cup and stuff like that going on. And
unless, of course, Kev, we're getting sponsored by FIFA.
Which we're not. And we're not getting...
But, if they want to sponsor us, I wouldn't say a word about them. I'm happy. Send me all the brown envelopes you want.
We're not sponsored by FIFA, Coca-Cola, Gazprom, or any of this stuff. Michael Ross puts it. The World Cup lost its magic years ago. The Champions League sorted that. As I say, the Champions League, I call it the moneyed unicorn. That is what the Champions League is. There will be a Super League at one point, which will probably put the World Cup back in its box even more. But if we were Welsh, how excited would we be just now actually going to your first World Cup since 1958? You've got to remember, I still see football as a fans game. And there's going to be some Welsh fans out there enjoying Qatar. Hopefully not getting their arms chopped off or stealing our Twix or something like that.
Best bit of that was, or the best bit before that was Martin Sheen. He's a great actor and a great philanthropist as well. Doesn't take his money anymore, gives it all to charity. And the warm speeches he did one on League of Our Own, and then they got him in to do it at the Welsh dressing room, and he is. What a public speaker he is. Absolutely unbelievable. So they start off with a bit of a smile and everyone's a bit embarrassed. And then by the end of it, you're on your feet. You had me supporting Wales. It's absolutely superb. So it's great to see that. And you can't deny, look, it's lost its magic for us because we haven't been at one, or Scotland hasn't been at one for a very long time. Ireland hasn't been at one for a decent amount of time. So if you haven't, it's like any competition you get no interest in because you don't have a team, you don't have a dog in the fight. And if you like, unless you like the game for the game's sake and the game's sake alone, then if you've got no dog in the fight, then there's no competitive edge. You're just watching. Might as well be watching two teams of boys playing tiddlywinks, But eventually, at some stage, we'll see some cracking football once we get through the groups and all, and hopefully there'll be a few upsets and all that sort of thing. We'd like to see the underdog prevail. It's the very least that could happen from this competition to try and redeem itself as one of the underdogs gets a good result somewhere. But. As I say, I totally understand people's point of view here. As you say, it's I'm not in any way disagreeing with that. It's a bad old show. I mean, we started I don't know if you're the last commenter heard the comments when we opened, but I started off by saying that it's a bad old show how the whole thing was managed. It was obviously corrupt, very obviously corrupt. It's just been a bit of a sickener ever since then. So the last two, the Russia and Qatar, and then picking it, so you have to change the entire global season. I mean, how much money has to change hands for you to have to fix the whole global season to fit in with a one competition? It's somebody get paid somewhere. Let's just put it like that. So, it's pretty poor. But look, I don't want to be a big downer on it either. That's just my opinion. If people want to watch it, fine.
Oh, there's plenty of people in the comments. I agree with both point of views. I actually understand both point of views. I'm chaffing sitting on this fence. Gary Oliver, no country is squeaky clean. Every country is dirty. Just look closer to home. Enjoy the tournament, lads. Less negativity. Urban Coolshay, this is a great question. I'm amazed Rod Stewart turned down the gig. So am I. Actually, I'm actually amazed that he turned down the gig. Aye, he did. Craig M. I'm surprised by how many people don't care about the World Cup. I love the WC. I'll be glued to it. And Paddy Lavery, Remember in Ardoyne, we get up at 12:15 to watch Acsom. Who's that gorgeous fella with Paddy in his avatar? Who is that gorgeous fella with Paddy in his avatar? It's me. It's me.
Sorry. I thought it was a couple of pensioners on a day out, mate.
Oh, cheers. I bumped into Paddy on Saturday before the Ross County game. And I had a blather with Paddy. And he's a very, very interesting person. And he says I'm better looking in real life than what I'm on this.
That's a low bar.
I did say I had a poor camera, Johnny. I said it's a poor camera. In real life, I'm George Clooney-esque, and Paddy will agree with that now after meeting me after meeting me in real life. And in Magnet 67 says, afternoon Acsom team from Doha. There you go. Keep on. We'll come back to Hakšabanović. Bully, Turnbull, Rockfall and Bullwinkle, whatever. Where do I see him fitting in when everybody's back? I mean, John, I remember you says last week that that Turnbull should be worried. Was it you that says that Turnbull should be worried if Aaron Moy is in front of him? Yeah. I think, where does Turnbull fit in just now when we come back? I think exactly what we've been doing. He'll be coming in certain domestic games. He will be coming in certain domestic games. I think he done well on Saturday. I think the goal that he scored on Saturday was great. Could we get an upgrade on David Turnbull, the Bull? I think we probably could. Would it be one of the areas that we'll be looking at? I think every area has been looked at with Ange Postecoglou to improve. But I think David Turnbull has showed enough sign of progress that he could have a future at Celtic, and I understand that Aaron Moy's signing, I do, but I think Turnbull will be there longer than Aaron Moy.
Well, yeah, I mean, my point was that Turnbull really is supposed to be the future. Aaron Moy is supposed to be a stopgap. So if Turnbull's fit, Turnbull should be playing. And we're not going to see any money from the sale of Aaron Moy, particularly, but Turnbull is an asset. So he needs to be treated like an asset. He's also had a very good couple of weeks. His ball through for the goal against Motherwell, wasn't it? It was an absolute peach for Maeda's goal. Absolute peach of a ball. Although he did have the space of the entire stadium to get it lined up, but still a fantastic ball. He's a very, very gifted footballer, and much like Moy, he wasn't gifted with huge athleticism, but he's not particularly pacey, but he is very, very good, and he stood us in good stead when we were struggling last year, and he deserves a chance. And for me, it's more important that we play Turnbull than it is that we keep trying out Moy, because Moy is not going to be there. So I think when Calmack comes back, I think the situation probably reverts to what it was before, and I think Turnbull should be the first name to replace. Take him off the bench for an impact, because he is very skillful, and when the game opens up as well, that helps. And he was very, very calm in taking that goal as well. It was beautifully done. So that's what we needed at the time. We needed calm heads. He's great, and it's great to have guys like that on the bench who really, really make an impact. I mean, that's the point of a squad. One of the questions that someone asked me was, we've got a great squad, or we seem to have a decent squad, but is anyone not pulling their weight? And I couldn't think of anyone in particular who wasn't. I don't think that issue exists under Ange. I think if you're not pulling your weight, is that good? Well, I mean, I don't know if that's not pulling his weight or just not good enough. I mean, you say the same about McCarthy. He'll be injured now. That's him done. But you could say the same about Abelgard. I don't know. That's to me, that's not pulling your weight. The reason they're not in it is because they're just not good enough. And you have to fear for Gucci now. The number of times you've seen people in front of him it doesn't look like he's going to make it, does it, really? It doesn't look great for the boy. Abelgaard's been the biggest surprise, though, because, O'Reilly's been a revelation in that position. He's done tremendously well in the circumstances. But, that's what Abelgaard was for, really. He was there for that. And instead, we transformed O'Reilly from the creative midfielder into the deep lying midfielder, and he's done tremendously well there. He deserves all the credit in the world for doing so. Again, we keep coming back to it, but I mean, what was that, a year ago? It was MK Dons and all the rest of it. Now he's playing that role, a role that wasn't his to play against the likes of Real Madrid. The progression is huge, absolutely huge. And then you look at other guys who could progress to that extent. So you look at, I don't want to jump ahead or anything here, but I mean, you look at guys like, Hatate, and how good could he be? I know he's good now, but how good could he be? Because he's not, he's a bit erratic at the moment. So, he's not always giving you, like he had a very sort of quiet half the other night, and then a fantastic second half. But, you have to ask, I suppose, I was thinking myself this morning, how many players have we had in a Celtic shirt that have been consistently brilliant in every half of every game? So there can't be that many. So, Hatate has been, really incredibly impressive, especially the last couple of games for his footwork. Because it brings back to me, I immediately associate, because when I see him like that, I just think jinking footwork. And as soon as I think of the word jinking, I think jinky. And as soon as I think of jinky, I think brilliant. So his footwork was absolutely sensational on a couple of those. His passing has been sensational. His calmness under pressure has been sensational. So nobody's the full 100%, I don't think. But I suspect he could progress far more than he has. And as people have pointed out many times, this is what his first season, really, because he was playing university football or whatever. So he doesn't have a lot of miles in the legs. And he's got a lot of progression still to come, I think, and what a player he could be.
That I'm going to come back to David Turnbull, then I'm going to move on to Hatate.
Right.
Abelgaard, I agree with the commenter Terry McCann. His pre-season starts now, and I think you'll maybe see more of him coming back into the game. I think Ange's been extremely clear that Abelgaard hasn't been fit because he had a lack of pre-season. David Turnbull, I can see David Turnbull being a pivotal part of Ange Postecoglou's side going forward, because I actually see a bit of Greg Taylor in him. I actually see a bit of development that he's actually bought into to what Ange Postecoglou wants players to do. And I think domestic guys will be a cornerstone of Postecoglou's team. Like, he gave Greg Taylor a longer contract because he understands that you need guys with experience of playing in that league. Underwater cabbage salesman, tentative. Turnbull needs to up his game to be a regular. I think the word in there, underwater cabbage salesman, is tentative. I think if Turnbull was a bit more aggressive in his style of play, a lot of Celtic fans would maybe take to him a bit more. John Bosas, Turnbull is much better than Moy, and David is improving. I'm fully actually on board with that. I do think that is a case, but he has got O'Reilly and Hatate in front of him at this precise moment in time. But I think the number of games that we play, there is room for all of them to actually contribute. Marquis, Turnbull's a must in this team. Boys getting better as the games go on, and I actually do agree with that. And Gucci Trufa, Turnbull will be here longer than most, I feel. I believe that as well. I think Turnbull does have a future in the Celtic side. I wonder when his contract's up, though. I do wonder when his contract's up. I don't think it's this summer. I think he might be going into the last year of his deal at the start of next season. But I do reckon my thought would be that Celtic will be talking with him with a new contract during the summer. I really do think that he's shown enough potential and he's bought into the Ange Postecoglou thing where he is going to be very, very decent to have in the squad. But at the moment, there is 3 players in front of him. McGregor, O'Reilly and Hatate are in front of him. But I think that is a very fluid position and Turnbull will get enough game time to justify him getting offered a new contract.
Well, I mean, the beauty of O'Reilly having had to fall in there and play that position is the fact that we have been constantly worrying about running Callum McGregor into the ground. And we've been doing it for years now. I mean, he's got more miles in his legs than an old Volvo taxi. He's he's been around the world a couple of times, Callum McGregor. It's remarkable he hasn't broken down more. And we were constantly thinking, well, who's going to replace Callum? And now Callum can be one of the guys that goes off in 65 minutes, get a rest, let O'Reilly drop in there, bring Turnbull on, and still maintain the quality of that midfield. So, not to the same degree, obviously, because Callum's a great player, but it's still, it solves a problem for us. I mean, that injury has now solved a problem for us. And we still have likes of Abelgour, as you say, who potentially has got to come in. So, that could be quite a strong area for us going forward. But it's much the same as everything else. It's very rare that everybody's fit anyway. So someone's going to get injured. So you're hoping it wouldn't be more of our creative players. But I mean, even if you got Hatate get injured, I would still drop. I would put you'd have McGregor, O'Reilly, and I would drop Hakšabanović in there to try and keep that creativity. Different kind of player, but still a very, very creative player. And that's what you need against the sort of stodgier teams that are dropping back. It has solved a problem for us. We have a decent looking midfield, and they've been playing, despite the fact that we've had a couple of close scrapes and not very impressive games. We have a tremendous record. We are still scoring a lot of goals, and it is. Although they haven't been great to watch at times, the players are, there's been a lot of games coming thick and fast, so the players will get a wee break now, and hopefully we see them a bit reinvigorated once it's over. But, it's I'm still very proud of the team, proud of what they're achieving. And the other thing, Kev, I think, is the team spirit, I think, as was pointed out in a couple of comments on the Twitter, Jota running in to get that ball from the goals after we go into the kind of team spirit, and that was contrasted with I think someone said when Griffiths came off the bench to score 2 and Christie turned away in disgust. Apparently, I don't remember that myself, but that's what I was told.
I do remember that game in question, and Ryan Christie's face was a discussion topic on a Celtic State of Mind bulletin for a number of days.
Yeah.
Ryan Christie's torn face. I mean, we need a strong midfield. We need a better midfield, and everything's up for grabs. If we want to become a regular Champions League side, and a Champions League side that gets in there and just doesn't turn up and gets plaudits for performance and actually starts putting wins and points and goals on the board, then everything is up for grabs. And when you speak about Hatate, I was at the game on Saturday, and at the time I wasn't as appreciative of his beautiful pirouette and drop of the shoulder for the first goal. I didn't realise that it took out so many Ross County defenders, and when you watch the highlights back, he just seems to find space everywhere, and he's got ability. And as you say, he's only 2 years out of youth football. I'm possibly glad that he's not gone to the World Cup, because Japan have got some half decent midfielders playing in half decent leagues in front of him, but I'm not worried about Hatate moving even during the summer. I do think that he needs another European campaign under his belt before somebody will come in before somebody will come in for him. But the boy has got all the attributes to go to the top level in the game. The last guy that I saw with those sort of natural attributes to go to that top level at the game was Van Dijk. And I don't think I'm being over the top and actually saying that, but it's up to the player himself. Just the same, it was Van Dijk admits himself that he wasn't the best of professional when he was at Scotland and when he was playing for Celtic, because sometimes he found it far too easy to play in Scotland. But I think Hatate has got everything. He's got everything natural that you need in a midfielder, and he should only develop the more that he plays at the top level. And that top level is the Champions League. And where is it? Gucci Truther again. Hatate can play at any level he wants in the next 5 years. I think that is genuinely true. I really do. But for him to reach that potential, he's not going to be about us for long, John. Definitely not.
There are certain reasons why people will stay with us, and certain reasons why other people won't. There's a reason I can see Turnbull being here in 5 years and Hatate not being here in 5 years, and that is not a slight on David Turnbull. No, we've just been up against Champions League teams, so you can see things like, you can't train athleticism into someone that they haven't been sort of, that God-given, twitch, super fast twitch and all this sort of stuff. That's God-given. You're born with that sort of thing, and it's very difficult to, train someone to a level beyond what their natural abilities will allow them to be. But physically anyway. But Hatate doesn't have that restriction. He has all the physical attributes, really. I'm sure he'd like to be about 6'5", but other than that, he has all the physical attributes necessary to play at the top level. He doesn't have restrictions in his pace. He doesn't have restrictions in his power. His ability seems to, you can just see the potential in him. He could be anything he wants to be, that boy, and that's I feel like somebody's dad saying that to them, but he could be, and I look forward to seeing the journey as it progresses, and I hope it progresses with us until we really just can't hold on to him anymore, because when he does go, I hope he goes for an absolutely unbelievable amount of money, and we don't sell him too early just to cash in. I hope we sell him at the peak of his powers if we have to, and he makes a clean fortune for us that we can reinvest in the team, because he'll be, if he gets to the peak of his powers, then he could be a very, very, very difficult cog in the wheel to replace.
Definitely. I'm going to bring up a comment for Beach Boys that I kind of agree with, but I'm going to say something here. I'm going to bring up Shot Skies. Ange cares more about the Silly Cup in Australia than the league games around it. Now, the fact that we haven't got any league games for 5 weeks seems to bypass Shot Skies. So I think Shot Skies should actually stop drinking diesel for broken down buses and go and do something else, because that is an absolute ludicrous comment to come in with. I didn't ken what he's actually going on about there. Beach Boys, would you be happy going into next year's Champion League with Calmac, O'Reilly, Hatate and Turnbull? No, that's just standing still. Get that. Every area of the team is up to being improved, but what happens if Hatate and O'Reilly improve? So what happens if next year we're going to the Champions League next year, and the O'Reilly and Hatate are not the O'Reilly and Hatate that were the O'Reilly and Hatate that were in the Champions League this year, but are far better players than the ones that played this year? That is no standing still. That is a natural progression that a club Celtic size actually need, John, I think. Well, you're going to need development within the squad.
Well, we have to, because the simple fact is, who are we going to sell? you know, because this is a player trading model, and who are we going to sell? So if you're going to replace those boys, you're going to need money. If you're not going to do it through through the coaching, if you're not going to do it through the auspices of, Ange, basically, then you're going to need money. And at the moment, I think Juranovic is the only one that looks likely, and he could go for anywhere from like 8 to 13 million. That's not going to be buying you top level midfielders. And we saw last year in our accounts, we had a record year, it was just under 30 million in player sales. And that gave us, the ability to, fund some of the transfers we had then. But we need to sell, So if you're looking for those guys to go, I think you might be looking a season too early, because I think they're going to have to get back in the Champions League. They're going to have to prove themselves at that level, and then we're going to have to be looking for big ticket money to come and get them, because that's the only way that we can improve. There's no point in just recycling people.
No.
What's the point in, those boys all have potential. All of them have great potential. And, let's be realistic. That's about the best that we can hope for. Unless we start, unless we have to get these guys, we have to build them up. This is a process. So we have to build them up to where they're worth something, so we can sell them and then get someone that's better. But, at the moment, I don't know if you sold any of those guys. I'm not sure that money would, at the level that it's likely to be at, would guarantee you anybody better.
No,
I'm not sure you can guarantee anyone better at all. So, I take the point. It might look like we're standing still, but it's not. You're developing your squad. That's the only choice we have. We don't have the money to compete.
I think that was, I don't know if you've seen it on Twitter, the guy on Twitter called Swiss Ramble,
yes,
does a very good breakdown of loads of clubs' accounts over the world. And he basically says our business model is based on selling players. Oh, yeah. We all knew that. Even somebody like me who doesn't like spreadsheets, doesn't understand spreadsheets, understands that our business model is built on selling players. And Postecoglou says that at the AGM. Yeah. Sometimes you've got to sell to actually improve the squad. And Craig M, this is a good point as well. We tried to improve the midfield when we were chasing Vinicius Junior in the summer. He was a holding midfielder, the Brazilian holding midfielder. And who's to say that Abelgor is not an upgrade on what we've actually got? Or a different option of what we've actually got? Because I think that's what we need. I think sometimes we need different options. And Postecoglou says something during the week there that he says, I make my decisions on games based on the information I've got, and I've got more information than you. Oh. And I found that a perfect answer to a question, because my father-in-law came in on Sunday, and I says to him, it was a good game yesterday, and he says, I'm not enjoying watching Celtic now, but that was because of VAR rather than Celtic. Yeah. But what he says to me, he says, I didn't like the way Postecoglou rotates his squad. Why not play Jota and Abada to start off with? Then bring on the other guys. And I thought, well, I can see the reason why he doesn't. And one of the reasons was that the fact that Postecoglou's got more information than us, why he starts those guys. But I also think that we're trying to second guess Postecoglou. Can you imagine being a manager coming up against Celtic trying to second guess Postecoglou, what he's actually going to do? I mean, you're a fullback and you can go, right, this week I could be facing Jota, I could be facing Maeda. So who do I prepare for? I didn't have a clue. You prepare for both of them. So one of my questions I was going to ask you, John, was this: should Ange Postecoglou stop rotating the side when we come back, as we no longer have Europe? No. That was one of the questions I was going to ask you.
No, not well. I mean, look, there's pros and cons, obviously, as we've seen. But first of all, just point out
Vinicius Sosa was the junior. That's the Real Madrid guy.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I don't think we were chasing him. But, the ridiculous comment earlier on there about he was more concerned about Australia than he was, about the league games. I mean, he played Maeda there, and Maeda's going to the World Cup. You could have started Jota the other day. So, look, everyone has issues with this rotation. The bottom line is it's working. right? So we don't have a big, massive injury list anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Which we've had before.
Whereas at this point last season, we fired out Turnbull and Kyogo ended up missing the majority of the second half of the season because we basically run them into the ground.
Yeah, and doesn't the other half of the town or the other half of the city, isn't there a big long injury list over there at the moment?
Didn't mention asthma medication.
But yeah, so they have a long injury. They don't have the right doctor, but anyway, they've got a very long injury list by all accounts. So we don't have that. We don't have that. So you have to say that it's working because you look at, as you say, you look at our experience from last year. We keep on talking about the lack of intensity, but in order to play with high intensity, we need bodies, additional bodies on the pitch. We need fresh bodies on the pitch. We need to give the guys a new incentive every week as well. We need to keep them on their toes as well, because there is the danger, and this was one of the other Twitter points that was made, was we're 9 points ahead. It looks like, the Rangers are imploding. And I said, a couple of weeks ago, I didn't think they were any threat to us because I don't think they had the squad to be a threat to us. And I thought they would keep up to Christmas and then they'd fall away. But anyway, they haven't even managed that. So, the issue is now complacency. So, our biggest danger really is ourselves at this point. So, if we get complacent, then that's going to be an issue. So the manager has to keep the players on their toes as well. And I think he's managing them well. Yes, it's odd to see this, constant rotation. It is odd to see it. Let's be honest, we're not used to it. We should be grateful we have the squad to do it, is the first thing. And I am very grateful we have the squad to do it. We should be grateful who's got the manager there to, have the team with such a team spirit that they're refusing to give up at the moment, regardless.
I love that. I love that.
That's your best player, and he's even on the pitch and he's running in to get the ball. That's fantastic to see. And Kyogo is just a bundle of Celtic loving energy. It's just wonderful, right? And there is a real, even now, after a couple of sort of dodgy games and dodgy halves, there's a real positive energy about the place. There's a real positive energy amongst the players. There's a real positive feel of the place. And, it's been better than it has, for a long time because, there is a vision here. There is a strategy. Now, we can debate the minutiae of it. We can debate where we think Ange is right and wrong and decisions he's making. Ultimately, what he says is true. He is in possession of far more information than we are. That doesn't mean he's always right. But
no, it doesn't.
He's making the decision from a position of full awareness of the facts. And he has to come up. His decisions have to pay off, and there's only been one time so far this year they haven't paid off. I think he's entitled. I think he's entitled to carry on as he sees fit until such times as it stops.
My wee Nakamura just fell off the desk there. That's what that banging was,
But yeah, no, he's entitled to carry on, Kev. Without, yes, I mean, people will be frustrated by it, but it's called managing the team. That's what he's doing. He's managing. So you have to manage the players, you have to manage their fitness, you have to manage your tactics, you have to manage your style. So
I feel he's no managing players' expectations though. He's managing his expectations of performance levels. He's not trying to keep players happy. I think there's a difference there. When sometimes you do see squads where there's changes come in, you go, why is that happening? Because you just know that the manager's trying to keep players happy. I don't see the constant changing as Ange Postecoglou trying to keep players happy.
No, as I say, I think it's quite the opposite. I think a good part of it is keeping them on their toes. Not letting them settle and not letting people think, oh, I'm a certain starter here. Now there are a couple of positions, obviously, but that's the case. Carter Vickers, O'Reilly, Hatate. But the ability that we have to move around some of the other chess pieces there is fantastic. I mean, there's you've got Bernabei coming back in there and having another good game. Now, He had a shocker. He had a shocker a few weeks ago. Absolutely dreadful game. Taylor had to come on for him at half time. He was that bad. He was so rattled. But he came back in and played another great game. So going forward, he looks fantastic. Again, someone with potential. He needs to work on, obviously, the defensive part of his game. But going forward, he looks tremendous player. He's a powerful runner. He's a great planner. And I noticed, and looking back, when I was watching the game, he was really inverted in a couple of points, which is, where Taylor has specialised. And Bernabei hadn't really been doing that. He'd been sort of staying out wide. He was sort of hugging the touchline, but he was really inverted on a few occasions and playing some good balls in the midfield. So, look, we've still got these results. We've still managed to get the wins. We've still got them with some fantastic goals as well, and of course the goal of the season that was not to be, with Jota. But
that goal, I mean, I didn't want to talk about referees today because I think we've actually covered that quite well. But if David Munro has ever seen officiating any level of football game again, it's too soon. I mean, I think that's one of the worst standards of referees I've ever seen at the weekend. The guy was absolutely hopeless.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, I asked people for their comments outside of VAR because we don't want to get into another big VAR decision conversation again. But then you get things like Hakšabanović getting booked because the other guy got hurt even though he never touched him when they both jumped for the ball. It's not even a foul, never mind a booking. The keeper picking up the ball, obviously, that was a big one. And Celtic getting penalised for an offence that materialised out of nowhere. People say there's more competent refs in pub 5-a-sides. If you don't understand the rules, you shouldn't be officiating. And then, are we heading to a crisis point with the refs? Is it getting to the point now where they're going to have to do something under this level of scrutiny? And also, the point I really believe is true, which is that there should be no amateur refs in the top flight. We have no business having lawyers, teachers, and MSPs in the game at the top flight. How big is the cost to have proper professional referees who are held accountable to professional standards?
SFA and professional didn't go together.
Yeah,
and I've said that plenty of times. We had a wee story this morning, John, that that Stephen McGowan, who has been known to get thrown tidbits from the Celtic boardroom from time and time again, and he is usually spot on, has fired it out there that the worst kept secret in Celtic land that we will probably be expecting bids for Josip Juranović after the World Cup, and we will be quite open to looking at those. We will be quite open to accepting some bids or considering some bids because he's 27. The new contract negotiations haven't went too well, so Celtic could be looking to cash in. One of the questions that we did get on Twitter was this: there is no drop off at right back with Ralston, so that was one of the reasons that we should sell Josip Juranović. And Celt Boy 1993 comes in and says Juranović is very replaceable. Bought for 2.5 million, sell on for 15 plus. Take 45 million and upgrade. Good business. Discuss. Discuss, Mr. Hughes.
I don't see him getting that sort of money, not unless he has an absolutely fabulous World Cup. Because I don't think he did himself any favours in Europe this year. So he will definitely make money on him. He's definitely the guy who seems most likely to go. And at that age, he's definitely the kind of guy that we should be letting go. So, he fits the profile. I think everyone knows that. Mm-hmm. He's going to be the one that's expected to leave and hopefully make us a profit. I hope he has an unbelievable World Cup because the better he plays, the more chance that, some inflated wage balloons in the EPL or something are going to put their hand in their pocket for a ludicrous amount of money.
You're Man United.
So that's what I hope he plays an absolute blinder and fair play to the boy. You know, he's done a turn for us. But it is one of those positions again. Ralston's great. I have no qualms at all about losing Juranovic. Obviously, we need to replace him, but it just depends. Are we going to replace him with a first choice right back, or are we going to replace him with a Ralston backup?
You've got to replace him with a first choice. When you're talking, he didn't want to start the process again. Tony Ralston is utterly fantastic. He was my man of the match on Saturday for his last 10 minutes.
Yeah.
That tackle that he put in when he charged the boy, it was very Roy Aitken-like. For me, it reminded me of watching Big Roy in these days. Ralston is wholehearted 100% and will be there, will be at Celtic for quite a while. But if Juranovic goes, we've got to sign another first choice right back.
Sure.
That is upgrade. That is upgrade, and that is a non-negotiable. We can't sign another 21-year-old for South America.
Yeah.
We can maybe do it because we've got 6 months to bed him in. That is the look there. But no, if Juranovic goes, we've got to sign another first choice.
Here's a question for you, just to throw a spanner into the works. Joe Hart. Now, to me, there's been, we spoke about it a couple of weeks ago in Madrid, and there was a point in that game, even the other night, when Starfelt, his pass to Hatate was intercepted, and Joe Hart was, he really, really looked his age coming out off that line. The boy just running around him and putting the ball in the side netting. But there's also been, it's not the first time this year, and there's issues with his positioning. There's issues with him not coming for the ball. He hasn't had any massive, huge errors, but he's 36. And again, he's been great for us. He's done a fantastic job for us. But moving on again, is that an area that we need to improve on? Want to make progress in the likes of the Champions League or even in Europe, because you need to have that absolute rock at the back. And Joe, for all the fact he's great, he does have some areas of his game that are concerning, and just with his age and everything else, I think this summer, with another title under his belt, he might move on. What do you reckon? Again,
I'll have a look. Joe Hart's done his job. I love him. He's bought into the club, really has, and I like that he's came up. He could have came up and been the bully big time Charlie. No bought in whatsoever, but he's bought into it. He seems to be a bit of a leader, but it is an area where you actually look at, because of his age, you're having a look at it and you're going, well, that could be a time for an upgrade. But what we're talking about upgrading is we're not going to upgrade 11 positions. We're not going to upgrade 16 positions. There's some things where you look at, and it comes back to what I hate, value for money. And I hate that saying, and it's a CEO saying. But that's where it'll come down to, where the coach looks to see, if I'm going to spend £6-7 million on a goalkeeper, is it an upgrade on what we've actually got, or could I be better off spending £6-7 million to upgrade up front or in the midfield or at fullback? And I think that's I don't think the goalkeeper will be the area that we're actually looking to spend a lot of money on, because we've also bought Seagrass as well. So the upgrade might already be sitting there. You don't actually know. But I couldn't see us. There's some commenter, I think it was the Urban Kulsha. There he is there. We need to sign a goal, like 8 million should be set aside for this. I can't see us spending £8 million on a goalkeeper.
Well, especially because we're not going to get anything for Hart. So, and Barkas, if we offload him without a loss, would be doing very, very well. Seagrass, I think, is 31, isn't he? He's early 30s. He's not. There you go. Either.
David Ferguson and Ryan Kelly were having that conversation in the comments.
Well, just one point to finish off, Kev, because I thought this was a good one. So Kevin Barry on Twitter said, the increasing trend for opposition teams to kill the game from the first minute by time wasting and feigning injury is beyond tedious. Scottish football will continue to decline if this is the dominant tactical approach. Compare and contrast with Ange in the Champions League and his desire to develop us, which I think is a very interesting point about the wider game, because, you know, I think you can see the one thing that Ange's style does is let footballers play football. You tend to think there's an awful lot of talented guys there who are being restricted by coaches, just giving them, you know, very, very, very limited game plan and very limited role. And I don't think Scottish football is going to benefit from that at all.
No, it's not. You know my thoughts on this. I've said it plenty of times. The fact that guys, no marks and losers like Derek McInnes and Robbie Neilson get big jobs shows everything about Scottish football. But what I would say to counter that, because I need to counter it, is I would love to have been in a position in the Champions League to waste bloody time to get a 1-0 victory against Sunday.
Fair point.
I would love to have been in that position with 8 minutes to go to waste bloody time to actually get 3 points.
Rolling about like Porto players, that's what they like to be doing.
Aye. We'll talk about Jim Orr's Seville thing. I don't know if you've seen it yet, but it's very worth watching on the channel. Jim took a camcorder to Seville when most of us only took one pair of pants and a passport. When Jim had the foresight to actually take a camcorder. It's great footage. It's brilliant having a look back and get it on the channel. I've got a couple of housekeeping stuff to bring it up. Let's have a wee look here. We have 2 standard. I need to lose that banner. How did I lose that banner? Oh, I'm getting good at this. We have 2 standard tickets to give away for this. A tribute to Wim Jansen and the team who stopped 10 in a row, the 25th, or won Celtic's first title in 10 years. The 25th anniversary of that on Friday the 12th of May 2023 at the SEC Armadillo. So we've got 2 standard tickets to give away from this from our pals at One Star. All you need to do is subscribe. If you subscribe, then I can bring that up now. When you're finished, I've just brought up so all you need to do is subscribe to win those 2 tickets. So get onto that as well. What else? I'll just kind of wrap up some of the comments here. Yes, Vinicius Jr. It was Vinicius Souza. We understand that we weren't trying to sign a Real Madrid winger to actually play as a holding midfielder for us. Stephen Kenny comes back in after my meeting with Paddy. Paddy was hanging drunk when he says that. To give Paddy his due, he had been drinking for 4 o'clock in the morning when I actually had met him.
His guide dog isn't even in the picture.
Gordon Coolshay, spit it out, Kevin. It was only once that happened, May. That was only once I spat it out. That'll never happen again. And Paul's away down to Manchester tonight because it's the blogging awards in Manchester tonight, where we're up for best video content, which is utterly fantastic because it's easy enough for us to put together a live stream, even with 2 BAMs like myself and John to run it, and me at the controls. But to become up for best video content was absolutely brilliant. And Jim's stuff for Seville is the quality stuff that we want to be doing more and more of as we're going forward. Lads, it's been excellent all day. I absolutely love it. So just didn't be BAM's teacher, and I'll see you all next week. John, pleasure as always, and hail, hail.